Josh Raven here with the Daily Dot at ELEAGUE, and I'm joined by Moses of the Analysis Desk, and we're here to talk about some very important North American Counter-Strike roster news. Obviously, we have CLG and Team Liquid doing their whole swap going on for some reason. We're not too sure why, but we'll talk about CLG first and what they've gained or lost.
Okay.
They've lost JDM, Star Orper, lots of frags, and they've gained Koosta, slightly underperforming. Thoughts on that change? Initial thoughts, Moses?
Obviously, it's a downgrade. I think there's two big things that actually CLG has to deal with. Two big, maybe not necessarily. Well, one of them is a big problem. The big problem is that with JDM leaving, like you no longer have that consistent star who's the one who's always performed best against the top tier talent in the world. And now, if you want to bring someone else in, if you want to make a roster change in the future, you don't have any drawing power to your team. You have, if you go to some prospective player, say join our team, and they look at it and they say, why would I join that? Like this team hasn't competed with the best in the world, even with JDM, and now without him, you guys got nothing. So there's that issue to deal with. And the other one is more personal. It's just more on the level of Koosta now, where I was a big champion of his. I still think he has the ability. Obviously didn't show it in Liquid, and obviously almost regressed in certain ways. But now this is kind of his last chance as well. If he continues the same bad trends in CLG and doesn't put up any kind of an impact, then I think he's going to be in trouble moving forward after CLG of finding any kind of a home. So this is really a make or break moment for his career as well.
But do you think the environment in CLG will suit Koosta better than it did in Liquid? A lot of people saying that perhaps with less superstars, so to speak, in the team, it might suit Koosta better to perform or outshine his previous performances.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at how CLG played with JDM, where a lot of things were centered around him and a lot of things were predicated on his success as an opera, I think that's the situation. If they just keep that and just plug Koosta into that role, it's very similar to what he did when he was having his success in Enemy. Now, granted, it wasn't against the same level of competition, but I think it probably will feel very much comfortable, more comfortable for him going from Liquid into that situation with CLG, where obviously on Liquid he had his stint with Simple, which is tough to play with, and then he had guys like Hiko and Nitro and ELEAGUE already established enough to be able to demand certain things where he was kind of relegated to some situations that he's not used to being in.
And now, talking about CLG going forward, I don't know if you're aware of their fifth player. I certainly am not. After the major, they're using Pitta for the major, obviously.
Yep.
But what do you think about their future after these changes? Do you think it looks bright? Can this roster work as one of the best in North America, or have they kind of slipped behind from these changes?
They've gone very, very far behind. If I'm CLG right now, what I'm kind of doing, and even for the major perhaps, is I'm just picking up some random young star in Premier, and I'm just saying you have X amount of months or whatever it might be. You have 3 months to prove that you have the ability to compete, that you should be on this team, and we'll give you a chance. We'll give you 3 months to improve, and if we're not seeing the signs, then whatever. But they have nothing to lose anymore, because no, this team without JDM now, we know Tarek's not going to be that match in, match out, that star to give you those 25 game-winning kills. We know they're not great in crunch time. They tend to slack off towards the end when they have matches won, as most North American teams do. But they don't really have much that you can have any confidence in saying they're the best in North America, or like best be able to compete in the world, or even the best in North America. So I'm just taking a big gamble if I'm them, like something like Cloud9, pick up some guy who might be the next Stewie.
Well, it does look like good news for another team. Team Liquid picked up JDM, obviously lost from CLG,
Yep.
and their latest change announced today, the addition of Pimp as well from SK Gaming. A little bit of a surprise. It seems like on paper a good change for them. What do you think? I assume you're in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think even with Cloud9's recent success in terms of the show they put on against Luminosity here at ELEAGUE, I think it's still kind of all aboard the Liquid train right now. If you're a fan of North American Counter-Strike, and if you're going to root for a team to become the best in North America, I think the one that's got to do it is Liquid. They have all the pieces, and we knew this was going to happen. I know Thorin spoke about it on length in some of his videos, but Hiko is just that guy who wants to win, and he has that quote. I think it was here in ELEAGUE when they were here, and he said, if I don't win a major trophy, if I don't win some big tournament, my whole career is going to be a waste. So this guy is just looking at the amount of years left that he has to play and just saying, I'm making moves now to win. I'm not playing for the future. I'm not playing to improve. I'm getting who I think is going to give us a championship. So these changes are coming for this organization if their lineups don't perform. I'm excited for it. Pimp, I think, is very talented. He's also very consistent in how he plays, makes some smart decisions. JDM, obviously, we know what he's all about and the things he's able to do and the people he's able to compete with, like Guardian and Kenny, all these top oppers. And I think the big thing is, the more important thing, I think, is that they've always had a Dren, they've had Koosta, they had Simple with his like emotional or personality problems, whatever it might have been, that have always kind of made those three kind of like the fringe players on that team, like the first one to go when there was trouble because they weren't performing or because there were just problems. So now with Pimp and JDM coming in, you've got to think the next two people on the chopping block are Nitro and ELEAGUE, because those two have showed a lot of potential and they've gotten a little bit of a pass. And now they're the ones in the chopping block. Those are the ones who have to be like, all right, time to make your next step, because we've been waiting for a year now for these guys to become consistent, to get better, and they haven't done it yet for whatever reason it might be. But now they're the ones who have to just be looking over their backs and like, all right, we got no more cushion now.
Team Liquid seem to be one of the teams that are kind of opening the floodgates for importing European players in CSGO. Obviously, Energy also picked up those three, Gobby, Tamsin, and ELEAGUE. Yep. But do you think this signals towards a future where more European talent comes over to North America to play, and not just those that are recently benched or recently heading towards retirement, but prime, fresh talent that wants to compete heading to North America?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, here's the reality. It's a little bit of a bummer because obviously they're going to bring Europeans over because they have a better system over there where they're grooming these players, doing better as teams to improve player and teach them how to play Counter-Strike the right way. So they're bringing these players over, but this is the kind of system we should have in North America, and that's the real shame about it. That's why it's cool seeing Cloud9 pick up a Stewie when he's unknown. It's not always going to work out, but there's got to be some commitment to changing the way that we play at lower tiers. In North America, I've always wanted to see a team from Premier stick together and all five break into the professional scene and just stay together and be competitive in the region. But right now, I mean, that is kind of the shortcut. Until that happens, I think these top North American teams who need a player here and there, they absolutely have to go to Europe and say, we'll take a player from a Tier 2 team and we'll bring him over because we know he's got the skill, and we'll plug him in and see what can happen. Because it's a great opportunity for the Europeans as well, where it's more money. It's probably a little bit more stable than trying to make it there. Easier qualifiers for all these big tournaments. So it makes sense on both fronts.
Okay, and you know what? We'll squeeze a little bit of ELEAGUE in because we are here, and
why not,
we've ranted about North American CSGO.
Why not? You got the branding and everything.
Well, we'll talk about North American CSGO, but at ELEAGUE, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, we had Team Liquid at the start, very disappointed, but then in that same group, Cloud9 reaching the finals, CLG reaching the finals, but neither team actually able to win. And there's not a lot of great talent left to come through. So what do you think it's going to take? Is there any chance of an upset for next week? I believe it's Echo Fox coming in, or even Complexity in the final week. Yeah. Half UK team.
Definitely no chance there. No, I mean, neither of those two teams, I think, are going to win that group. I think Echo Fox has Navi and Mouse Sports in their group, and then Complexity has Virtus Pro and Envy in their group. I don't see either of those teams getting even towards Friday, much less winning the entire thing. The real opportunity was CLG playing against a weaker Astralis, with Kerrigan coming in late, with the recent change of KRB and Cajun. I think that had him at a weakened spot. Everyone else just kind of, just came out flat a little bit, and I think that was the turning point for Liquid. They're like, all right, this just definitely isn't working. When they went 0-6 in the groups and everything, or 0-8 on the week. Cloud9, I still think, I think what they did against Luminosity, I almost think that's their peak. That's kind of the scary thing with Cloud9, is that even that success that they had, I don't think they can, replicate that consistently against a team like Luminosity, and I don't think that they can really achieve much more than it. That's the big danger with them. That team is geared towards being competitive in the region, but it's not a great team in terms of international competition. So that's just one more reason to climb on that Liquid train and just say these are the hopes, these are the guys who are going to try and beat the Europeans, and they have the best chance for it.
Well, you mentioned Cloud9 there in international competition. Before we end, we'll quickly jump on the major qualifiers that just happened.
Yeah.
Obviously, Cloud9 weren't able to make it through, and that's a bit of a surprise for everyone. And especially, I think the downside of that was Shroud putting up a pretty disappointing showing in that tournament. What do you think was going on with him and that team there? Why was Shroud the one that failed to show up when usually he's at least consistent?
I don't know what it might have been for Shroud, but I mean that's kind of the thing with the whole team, right? Is like nothing that move to bring in Slemmy is made to free up nothing and make him the star and give him more space to do what he wants, and he's up and down. Shroud just was the one who had the off tournament. I think Skadoodle still plays a little bit too passive for my liking with his skill set. He seems just a little bit scared and timid as an opper. Stewie, I mean, it's actually criminal that Stewie's able to be the best player on the team in less than 6 months, that he's now the star on that team. Like, I don't know what they've been doing, but you'd imagine there'd be some kind of pride where nothing Shroud. Skadoodle is just like, who is this young guy just showing us all up every game, every event these days? And it just seems like nothing's kind of improving there. So I'm not quite sure what specifically Shroud had to deal with. I mean, I don't really want to single him out because I think in terms of their game, all three of those players have something fundamentally wrong as players, and that's going to hinder that team when it comes to better competition. I mean, the major qualifier had some really good teams. I mean, that was a sick major qualifier, but in terms of Tier 1 talent, there was only like 1 or 2 teams there that were from Tier 1, so there's no reason why they shouldn't have qualified for it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Moses, it's been a pleasure chatting North American CSGO. A pleasure for me,
Always
perhaps a misery for you, but thank you very much for joining us
Yeah,
today.
no problem. Thank you.